Welcome, useful content community. Have you ever wondered what is the best way to repurpose your videos into engaging clips for social media? Well, you want to stay tuned because this week we are honored to have with us content creator and co-founder of Authentic Marketing, Grant Taleck, to show us how to do that.
Broadcasting live from Relate Studios in Trinidad and Tobago, it's the Useful Content Creation Show with your host, Juma Bannister.
Welcome, useful content community. This is Useful Content Creation Show where business owners and entrepreneurs come to improve the content they create by educating themselves in useful strategies and tactics in marketing, business, and content creation. And for those who are in the comments, remember we are the Useful Content Community and we often throw bulbs up like this. We own the bulb emoji. Remember to throw your bulbs up in the comments and to drop your hashtag UCC Live. And if you're here on the replay, drop your hashtag UCC Replay. And for my Facebook group, the Useful Content Community, that's around, 140-something person strong now. Don't forget to drop your Learn with UCC because we are here to learn things today. New things, good things, things that are useful to all of us. And today I'm happy to introduce our special guest who's going to teach us useful things on how to turn your podcast, webinars, and YouTube videos into engaging clips for social media. Welcome to the show, Grant.
Thanks for having me, Juma. That's what I'm here for. Going to try to be at least a little bit useful today. So doing my best.
Yes, I don't know what's your internet is fighting you. It's fighting you, but it's.
Can everyone see me right now, though? Are we good? Can you hear me clear?
Yeah. You're clear. I think clear as a bell.
So I switched over to the trusty hotspot on my phone, and right. It's wild that a hotspot on your phone could actually be better than the Wi-Fi at your home. So I think that's cool. I think that we actually, maybe 2 years from now, 3 years from now, we won't even need Wi-Fi at our homes at all. We'll just be able to use the hotspots in our phones to get good enough connection. So I'm hoping for that. And right now it's working out. So we're good.
Yeah, yes. Seems very, very good. Or we could, in a few years, maybe thanking Elon Musk for all of the free Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, the other thing I'm excited for is imagine being, camping in the middle of the desert and still having a crystal clear connection. And basically, kind of leveling the playing field, but for really being able to be connected anywhere. So I'm very excited about that too.
I am, but I think that would also be kind of like, you're going to have to make a choice to be disciplined when you're away from the internet to stay away from it. But in other cases where you want to do stuff with it, it's going to be very good to have it around.
Yeah, yeah. You're right. You would have to have that discipline, but to have the option, I think is amazing. So
yeah,
it's working out right now.
That would be incredible. Let me say hello to the community. Let me say hello to Gabe. Now my day is complete as I see one of my favorite creators. Thank you so much, Gabe. Thank you so much, Gabe, for chiming in on the Useful Content Creation Show. It's great to see you. Hi, Chelsea from Belize. Hashtag UCC Live. It's great to see you as well. Hi, Gail. Good to see you as well, Gail. Gail, I know this is somebody from my Facebook group. I just don't know who.
Hi, Facebook user.
Copious amounts of bulbs, which we appreciate. Good night. And 10 out of 10 interviewee.
That's my girlfriend. I love you, Felicia.
I thought so. I thought this was somebody important to you. You haven't said a word, but you get a 10 out of 10. That's what we do. We call that in Trinidad and Tobago, we call that rent a crowd. And Gail is saying on UCC Live. Oh yes, and of course I have to put this up now that I know. Love that guy. Okay, good.
Love you.
All right, great. So let's talk a little bit about you. Let the people get to know you a bit better. You could tell us how you started your company and became a repurposer of content, Grant.
Yeah, so I've been creating here on LinkedIn for probably about 2.5 years now. It really stemmed out of the pandemic. And at the time, I was going to attempt a ton of networking events each week, maybe two or three, and learning to enjoy networking. And it was at a point in the business where meeting new people and building connections was so important. I mean, we had like
Mm,
just started me and my business partner Mitch, who was also a college roommate of mine. We were just getting our, you know, building our business from the ground up, right?
mm,
And going to those networking events was amazing for us. But obviously, those completely shut off about 2.5 years now, I guess. But that was really the catalyst for the future of our business, and that's when we started creating on LinkedIn, specifically with video and learning how to build trust on LinkedIn. Um, and it's amazing. It's been amazing so far, but that's kind of led us into building the content repurposing agency that we have now. And basically, podcasters come to us to repurpose their content. So they'll send us their long form, 45-minute episodes, like a live stream, just like this one. We listen through that whole thing for gems, 30 to 45-second clips, and then send that to our video editors who really add animations, B-roll, music, and make it really engaging for various social media platforms. So yeah,
mm.
that's a little bit about me and my business. Yeah.
So it's like 4 years now. 2018 is when the business officially started.
I guess it was 2018. Yeah.
Right,
And
right.
like I said, I would say where the niche we're in now really was a result of about 2.5 years ago with COVID kind of forcing us to really figure out that whole building trust thing online, which is like kind of the foundation of any business. So
Mm,
um the first year and a half of our business, we were doing a kind of a lot of different things for a lot of different types of businesses, all
mm,
digital marketing related. But finding our niche was like the most awesome thing ever. Definitely
mm.
required some patience and time.
Right. Did you have like the college roommate kind of dream of building a business with your college roommate together and it turning big and like a tech company type of thing? Was that like a thing?
Yeah, well, so Mitch and I, we were freshman roommates and we were roommates all through senior year. So
Mm,
we became amazing friends throughout college. And we knew if I feel like if you can live together with someone and you get along with them, odds are you have a better chance of starting a business together because,
mm,
right, you can work through issues together and you probably get along. And that's very important. But basically, our freshman year, we were both had started e-commerce businesses. They were
right.
both, Mitch's was apparel and mine was sunglasses. So we basically learned social media marketing kind of from the ground up there. And we were always bouncing ideas off of each other. And a lot of the time we were just kind of like, I would do an experiment, like sending out free stickers to like, our social media followers and things like that, or starting an ambassador program. And then Mitch would experiment with things and I would take ideas from him
Mm,
and vice versa. And it only made sense to us at one point we had started a business together.
right.
And then come senior year, we knew we wanted to do entrepreneurship full time, right? Like start a business and have it running right when we were able to get out of college. So we were like, all right, we need to do this before we graduate, though, have some clients, and otherwise we're just starting exactly from zero. So we were able to turn kind of some internships and just connections we had through school into clients, and that was kind of what started the business for us. But yeah,
Mm,
I wouldn't say we ever like it's not so cliche like you see in the movies. Like Mitch and I just had a really great friendship. We
right.
know we both wanted to start a business and we wanted to kind of build freedom into our lives, and it
Mm,
just made sense. So
right.
yeah.
I hear you talking about that even now in your podcast, your YouTube videos. You talk about like being free to do stuff. What was the moment when you discovered like, oh, the eureka, this is the niche? What was that? How did that happen? Like, this is the right thing that we're going to do from now on.
So we were dabbling with podcast repurposing for some time. And one day, Mitch and we were sitting in our backyard, actually. Again, we were roommates at the time, and we were just having a discussion like, all right, we had started to get some traction and started to get some clients for that niche.
Hmm.
Um, and Mitch kind of suggested, he was like, maybe this is the time where we actually go all in on this niche. Like we've gotten some clients and we've actually had people reach out to us and say like, this is exactly what we need. And in
Right,
the
right.
past, when we were just starting the agency, the first year and a half, the way relationships would work was like, we would have to meet someone at a networking event. We'd have to
Mm-hmm.
completely uncover their needs, right? Like figure out what their issues were in the business and kind of formulate like a custom marketing plan for them, create a custom proposal. And like, we wasted a lot of time. So when we're able to develop our offering where people send us their content and then they get more content back sent to them, like that's when we started getting some traction there. It just clicked and it was like, all right, let's focus on this.
Right.
We had experimented with some other niches in the past too. And to be honest, like we just didn't really see much traction with them. So it was really hard to commit. It's really hard to commit to something when you don't see a lot of results, or at
Right.
least like a sniff of results. So that was the point, is like we had created our offering. We had like monthly pricing for our service. We had examples of the content we could create. And we had some clients there too. And it was like, all right, this is the time.
Right. I hear you. Yeah, and I saw that you would have tried different things and gone through an interesting process of arriving at that through other, like I guess there was a time when you were thinking about websites and there were other things happening. And so yeah. All right, let's talk to the community a little bit. Well, of course, Gabe had said earlier we can see and hear you clearly. I do.
Mitch is here too.
I'm wondering if I'm going to show this comment. Question, Grant: when you leave your girlfriend, do you tell her bye, Felicia? Why? Oh my God, Gabe.
I hope I did that once and it didn't go well.
It didn't go well. I would think so.
Yeah. She was like, Grant, that's not the first time I've heard that.
Yeah. You know, it's yeah. Be original at least. Hi Shannon, good to see you. Hey Jared. Jared is laughing at Gabe and his joke. You know, don't encourage him, please.
Love Jared. Love your content, Jared.
And we keep running shit on it today. And let me just say hello to Mitch. Hi Mitch, what's up, man? I like your profile pic. Good to see you. Normally you're wearing this cap. You're wearing a cap in the videos. All right, great.
He's got great hair.
Yeah. Don't we all? We're all developing that. All right, great. So now that people know you a little bit, let's jump into the topic of the day, repurposing and all the stuff connected to that. But before we get directly into that, let me ask you the big question that I ask everyone who comes on the show. What makes your content useful?
I mean, that is a really good question. I'd say the mindset I bring to social media is always, if someone reads this post or watches this video and they actually haven't learned something from it, then I've kind of wasted their time. So every time I post, if someone's learned something, I feel great about that. So, and I think that's something a lot of us share. And maybe that's not unique to me. Like a lot of people do that. But I think if you can do that consistently and you focus on that fundamental, then you're going to be successful over time. I think it's very easy to get caught up with like getting the most exposure or focusing on awareness or like just the number of views, when at the end of the day, if you post something and 3 or 4 people are actually able to implement what you suggest, like that is just that is amazing. You know, that's amazing. That's the goal, right? So yeah, I'd say that I that's definitely a goal of mine. If you're trying to figure out how to repurpose video content and create video content more efficiently, I'd say would be a good reason to follow our accounts and learn from us. That's kind of our goal, right? Is like, we know there's a lot of marketing teams out there who are probably strapped, who don't have a lot of resources. And maybe you're just 3 or 4 people. Like if you implement some of the systems that we share and talk about, and that we'll talk about through the rest of this conversation, then I think you can get a lot more with the time you put into it. So that's always a big goal for every post I make.
Right. Yeah, I like what you're saying. Jay Okunzo, I don't know if you know Jay. I listened to his podcast, Unthinkable. He describes that as resonance versus reach. So as opposed to going wide, you go deep, and you try to teach things while you are going deep with what you teach. So that's very important. I like that. Great, wonderful. So let's talk about repurposing now. So if I am really great at making content, why would I need to repurpose anything? Isn't that a waste of my time and money?
Well, it's probably more of a waste of your time and money if you're not repurposing, because as you know, you've put so much time like into creating the content that you already have created. And I'll just give people like an example of an exercise I did last week that has been really helpful for me. Is I just went through all of my past LinkedIn posts and I like read through the text posts, I watched some of the video content, and the ones that I thought were really not just the ones that performed well, but the ones that were like actually really on brand, like the messaging was good and that were helpful. Those are great examples of, you can just repost them and maybe kind of reformat some of the text or reformat the video a little bit. You could also rewrite the script and record it again, and maybe just improve it, or just, you know, repost it as is. So I think there's a certain point when I think early in your journey, it's important to just create as much as possible, and do it as consistently as possible. And then there reaches a point where you have to be like, all right, I need to figure out actually how to do this to where it's not consuming all my time. Because there's just so many ways that we want to spend our time in our businesses and our personal lives. So, and also I think just asking the question of like, all right, is this content actually helping sell the service that I'm offering, the product or something like that? Yeah, I think that's a really useful practice. It's just to go back through everything you've already done and see what's like you think really will resonate. So yeah, that's all I'll say there.
Yeah, and so I guess that the main thing is that you maximize the things that you've already done. So how does that work when you are trying to discover like new ways to do things, and you're trying to discover new methods and new ways of expressing your content? Is it that you have to then put some emphasis outside of the sight of people, like do some development outside of that, so that because I guess if you're repurposing most of your content, then how can you get to share new things? Is there a way that you can do both and be effective?
Yeah. So it all comes down to, you have a message and you need to figure out multiple ways to share that same message. So have you ever watched those videos on YouTube where it's like, we explain the same physics principle, you know, like the rotation of the earth. We explain it to a 5-year-old, we explain it to a 15-year-old, and then an 80-year-old, right? So like you're explaining the same concept to different perspectives, and giving people different ways to understand something. And then also, people usually the first time they hear something, they might remember it for a little bit of time, but then it's very easy to forget. And this is why like consistency is just so important in marketing, is just showing up with a similar message, you know, not for just 3 months, like over the course of 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Like that's so important to be consistent. So I think the thing with repurposing is thinking about ways to tell the same message, but doing it in a different format and in a different way that hopefully will make it click for them. You know, this will make sense. So now some people love to learn by going to YouTube and watching maybe a 60-minute video like this one. And then other people will like going to TikTok and watching like very concise videos that are short and to the point. There's also people that like both too. So I think it's important to figure out like just figuring out how to tell the same message in different ways, and maybe re-energizing it. Like it's okay to feel like it's getting a little boring sometimes, because if you feel like it's maybe a little boring and repetitive at some points, maybe you've actually said it consistently and you've said it enough. Like if you hear Gary Vee with what a lot of his posts and stuff like that, you've probably heard him say the same thing 30 times over the past 6 years.
Yeah.
But there's, for some reason, this time it actually made you act and like maybe want to go start your own business or something like that, or want to get started in social media marketing. So there's an element of that too. It's like if you can capture someone at the right place at the right time, For instance, like with our business, a lot of people that we build relationships with, in the first week or month of us having a relationship, maybe they don't need content repurposing, but a
Right.
year and a half from now, they actually do start a podcast. And
Right.
then we're in the back of their mind because we've been posting consistently, and they're ready to come to us because we actually stuck with them over time. So
I mean, that last thing you said is really something that, as you were speaking, it was playing in my mind, because a lot of times when you first start with content, it's kind of bad, and you're not going to. I mean, at least not me. I'm not going to repurpose bad content.
That's right.
Is there some way to assess those things, or is it just up to the person who is creating the content to know whether or not this is good enough to even put energy into repurposing it?
Yeah. So if you have good original content to start off with, it's always going to do better in the repurposing process. Like, you're going to want high quality video recordings, like at least 1080p, and it's really important to have good audio using a good microphone. Well, you don't even need a good microphone. You just need to use the tools that you have and try to use them correctly. So that's important. I think if that saying, like, trying to polish a turd or something like that. Like,
Right.
if you're trying to get a lot out of content that just, isn't great, then it's only going to go so far. So yeah, we kind of sometimes have had conversations with potential clients where it's like, let's try to figure out some ways to increase the initial production quality of your videos. And usually that just comes down to those few simple things, like adjusting lighting, like using a different camera. Like, I use my iPhone as my camera for live streaming like this, and connect it to my computer. And then I use an external microphone.
Right.
Having some simple things, it's not crazy. It definitely helps that content go further.
Right. And so there is a quality concern, or from the technical perspective. What about the actual content itself? What about, like, the things that people are saying? That really is, like, by the time someone comes to you, they're kind of certain that what you're saying is kind of working. Is that not usually the case, or do they, like, bring it to repurpose and then ask you, is this any good?
People, there definitely are oftentimes they're asking, like, all right, how do we make this long form episode better? Like, what can I do? And honestly, like, I think most of our clients are just really talented, like really good at interviewing, and they have great stuff to say themselves. I think the hardest hump to get over is just, like, believing that your content, what you're saying, does have value. I mean, I think that everyone does have a story to share that is valuable, and I think that's where sometimes, like, we think we have to reinvent the wheel with every single piece of content that we create. But just the fact that you are coming from a different perspective makes your content valuable. And, like, I mean, for instance, you're based out of Trinidad and Tobago, and just hearing your perspective in the business community, like, I don't have that many interactions with people from that country. On LinkedIn, I get to do that, and I find, like, hearing your perspective so refreshing and exciting, and it draws me to your content. I think a lot of your content is unique and really solid and really consistent. But I think a big part of what makes all of us unique is just, like, who we are, and it's not always about what we're saying. A lot of the time it's just your interest and the stuff apart from your business also that bleed into it as well. So yeah, we've definitely, I think, oftentimes underestimate the value of just the fact that we have a different perspective. And if we just bring a slight 5% twist to a story or to an industry, like, that's enough to make people think twice about it.
Right. I agree. I think there are small tweaks you can make to make things interesting, and a lot of the content that you create. I mean, I always tell people when they're creating content, the very first thing that you need to know is, who am I? That's, like, the number one thing at the top of the list you need to kind of figure out before you even start to think about what you're going to make. So it really comes out of who you are. You have very specific experiences, specific personal goals, specific wants and preferences, specific values, and that's important for you to kind of solidify and know what they are before you start to churn things out, you know?
Yeah.
Let me look at some comments here. Okay, I'm just gonna run through these really fast. Okay, Lorenzo is here. Hi, Lorenzo. Thank you for jumping on. Resonance over reach. Love it. Yes, that is a big thing. I love that from Jay. And okay, let me skip a few because people are talking about different things. I've studied at YouTube University, still working on my degree. Everyone is, Gabe. Everyone is still.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, of course, this is what Gary Vee has caused. Gary Vee is king at repurposing content. Let's say what Chelsea has to say. Chelsea said, if you're just getting started putting on content on a somewhat regular basis, at what point do you start repurposing?
That's if you're able to do it right away, then start. I'd say start right away. And maybe if you're for example, doing a podcast and your goal is to initially do 4 episodes per month, and you might want to consider cutting that back to 2 episodes per month. And then those 2 episodes, try to make them as great as possible, and also focus on repurposing them as well. You know, maybe make 2 5-minute YouTube videos about specific topics from in those videos, and then take a 30 to 45-second clip from those episodes and post those to LinkedIn, maybe Twitter, maybe TikTok. You don't have to go everywhere. I'd say just focus on 1 or 2 platforms at first. But if you have the option, I think you need to find that balance between long form and repurposing. So yeah.
Yeah. And Felicia said, one of the best pieces of advice you gave me was about reinventing the wheel. You think everyone knows what you know, but sometimes sharing the basics is the best you can do for the general public. Thank you so much, Felicia.
Love that.
Hello, Felicia.
Love that comment.
Of course, you love the comment. Of course.
This comment makes me think of I was watching someone paint today, and like if you were to create content about painting homes or trying to help like painting businesses become more efficient, you should start with like the very most basic things, like even things that seem obvious to you, like literally like how do you hold a paintbrush in your hand? Because there's probably it may seem easy to you, but to others it may not be obvious.
Right.
That's why in primary school we spend months learning how to actually hold a pen, but then once we know how to do it, it's so easy, and now we don't even think about it. So I think a good quote that stands out to me is, what's obvious to you is not obvious to others. Right. So, and that's one of the biggest things that gets in the way of sometimes us wanting to create content, is sometimes it may not seem that we have something valuable to share, but that might be because you actually do have so many valuable things to share that they come easy to you.
Yes.
And therefore you're just not realizing it. So if you just maybe, like, if you're having an issue with that, struggling with that, throughout the day, just take notes of kind of the things that you're doing. Like, you know, maybe you're sending out a cold email or something like that, or you're doing a specific video edit. Like there's a learning within that activity that you can share to someone else. So yeah, what's obvious to you is not obvious to others. So share the basics. It really does help, and you'll have unlimited content if you focus on that.
Yeah, that is so true. And I think how I say it is like, what is normal for you is interesting for other people.
Cool.
And I love the whole idea of just learning how the right way to hold the paintbrush. You might not think of that as something important. I think sometimes when we learn more and we grow in our knowledge, we forget that there's foundational things that are really relevant to people who are coming through the same journey. And we don't really think about sharing those things. But it's very important that we could sometimes take ourselves down from where we've reached and dip back into those foundational things to share them with people. And never really get tired of doing that, because there's always people who want to learn more and who know less than you do. So it's really important. That's good stuff. That's good stuff, Grant. All right, so tell me, explain the process of how you assess a company to see if it makes sense to help them create repurposed content.
Yeah, so usually it comes down to they have this goal and they want to get more into thought leadership. Like so a lot of the companies we work with are like more on the corporate side, and they're getting more into B2B content marketing. And they've been probably maybe pretty sales heavy in the past and really reliant on kind of more traditional aspects of relationship building, like email, cold calling, in-person meetings. And they're just trying to figure out this content marketing thing, right? And so I think they're finally reaching a point where, all right, we really want to go all in on thought leadership content. We have so many experts at our company, like let's leverage them and help them create useful content, like what we're trying to do right here. And the biggest thing they need help with is getting that expertise out. And if they have someone on their marketing team who is willing to spearhead, like launching a podcast or launching a webinar series,
Right.
and really putting time into that, that's great. But what a lot of those, they're not able to put a bunch of time towards actually marketing that content from the get-go. And that's where someone kind of like us comes in. Like I said, when an individual like at these companies or a solopreneur or a podcaster is like launching a podcast or a webinar series, a lot of the time it's just them doing it, or maybe just them and another person. So when it comes to repurposing, like they just don't have time for that, because they're starting to think about doing the next piece of content. And that's the conundrum that content marketing teams face, is like there's always that next shiny object, or like that next shiny piece of content that they can start working on, but they forget they've literally spent so much time creating past content that they should leverage. So that's how it usually works out. Like they already have someone on their team who is really dedicated at making their great long form content, whether that being a podcast or a webinar, and maybe they could do repurposing, and maybe they have, but every time they start, they burn out because there's so many other things that they're focusing on. So it really comes down to usually the clients we start working with are already doing some repurposing. But like I said, it's just really hard for them to stay consistent because they don't have someone dedicated on their team to do it and just own that process.
Right. And that is that what you have heard you use this term before? Is that what you would call like recency bias? Where well, could you explain what that means? I think it's an amazing term. Could you explain what recency bias means?
Yeah, so recency bias is like we place more emphasis and we trust things that are new and current. So if you go to YouTube, for instance, and you see a video that was posted about calculus, and it was just posted 3 months ago, you may trust that video more than the one that was posted 7 years ago, even though the one that was posted 7 years ago, the content is exactly the same and the fundamentals of calculus have not changed since then. So it's kind of a fundamental human flaw that we have, is that we focus too much on what's fresh and what's new. And this is why some people are really obsessed with current events and the news. And there's also other people that are obsessed with history and art and archaeology and like learning about things that happened thousands of years ago. So recency bias, like on a content marketing team, kind of looks like what I was describing earlier. You're always trying to focus on that next piece of content. And because you think that next piece of content could be the one that gets you to your goals, that really pops off or goes viral, when that's not really the goal. The goal is to be consistent over time and realizing that like there's not one single piece of content that will change your business. It's really the series of content over time that's going to add up and build your brand and make people want to come to you when the time is right. So that's it.
Right. So content compounds. Is that what you're saying? Compounds,
content compounds. And it's the same way your like friendships compound. Like the people that we trust most, the reason we trust them is because we've been friends with them for maybe 5 years, and they've, when our tire popped on our car, they came and picked us up, and when our kids need to get picked up at school, like they picked them up as well. Like that's the type of small things over time that really add up. And the difference between that and like someone you just met 2 days ago, that maybe for some reason they walked up on the street and gave you $500. Like, it's a nice thing. Maybe they were making a YouTube video, but they're not really building long-term trust with you. They're kind of just kicking off a relationship. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I like the whole idea, and this is part of the philosophy of Relate, that we believe in long-term relationships, and our content. And my personal view and the view of my company is that the purpose of content is to build relationships. That's my
Yeah.
personal view and the view of my company.
Well, and I will say that, so like you and I have never talked in person, like we've never done a video call, but I've seen your content over the past year and a half, and I already feel connected to you because of that. And I have so much more trust in you because I've seen your content consistently.
Oh,
So your content is working on me 100%.
it's
It
magic.
works.
The magic of content. That's good to know. Let's just look at the comments a little bit. So Ballard is asking a question. Could you be more specific? What is your advice to someone who is just starting out? Like, that's a really broad question. Could you be more specific? Like, what is your advice about which one specific things? And we'll be sure to try and fit your question in. But that's really, really broad. So I want to take a question, but be a little more specific, Albert.
Yeah, Ballard, be a little more specific there. That is my
Right.
brother, by the way. So
Oh,
I'll
that's
get
your
hard on
brother? Oh, yeah, he's
you.
have the
Yeah.
same last name.
I'm trying to, yeah.
He has the same last
Yeah,
name.
he's
Look
in
at
the
that.
other. He's in the room next to me. So
Oh,
shout
that's
out.
the whole crew is He's on the regular internet. The whole crew is is out tonight.
Lucky to
All
have
right.
support. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Lorenzo is asking, is there some analytics or metrics that which may be used to guide the repurposing? For example, days might show that only the first minute or 5 minutes of your video was viewed. That's opportunity to repurpose the unviewed pieces of that longer video. Well,
Yeah.
that's an interesting question, and I had something like that at the end, but you take this one away, Grant.
That's a really good question. So and this makes me think of the YouTube analytics platform. So if you're posting any video to YouTube, you can look at when people stop watching your video and how that degrades over time. So what you'll find is that the vast majority, maybe like 60%, don't even make it to 30 seconds, and that's okay. If 40% of people make it past that and keep watching, that's awesome. But like you said, there's probably a lot of people that are actually missing the meat of your conversation. It's also important to realize too that if someone has watched your full length episode and they've consumed the whole thing, it's still really constructive for them to get follow-up content from that conversation. And the whole point of these clips is to reinforce, tell a story, share a piece, share an insight. If you hear it again, it's more likely to stick. And so it really think of the content repurposing as a way to follow up on that long form content as well. But another interesting thing that I think has legs in the future, I mean, the way we choose clips is we have our video editors go in, we'll listen through the whole conversation. They'll choose like 10 clips. And then we have another part of the process where someone will listen to those 10 clips and pick like the best 2. And a lot of it really is just using creativity to think like, all right, what is going to resonate with an audience and like what's actually relevant to their brand.
Right.
But there's actually, you can see on YouTube when people are rewatching certain points of your video and sharing.
Right.
So if that data is actually really interesting to see. So if there's a point where everyone just clicked share and sent it to all their close friends, that's obviously a really good indicator that clip probably packs a punch and could do well with repurposing.
That's a good point. There was a video that you created in May, to be specific, on May the 11th, where you asked the question, what if there was a way to source clips from your audience? You asked that exact question.
Yep.
And in that same month, that feature that you described came out. So the feature of the most replayed section of your YouTube video became available to everyone. It was only available for premium customers before. And and you can see now there's a little kind of star, a little bunch of stars you see on the part that is replayed the most. And I was going to ask you, how have you been using that? Has that feature changed the way you create clips at all?
We haven't started using that with our repurposing process, just because I think that it hasn't gotten robust enough, and some of the long form content we're working with may not necessarily have enough views to actually
Right.
get quality data that'll suggest something that makes sense. But I think we're getting there, and it will make sense very, very shortly. So I would love it if you could just, like you said, the audience was the decision maker when it came to the clips that actually mattered. But there is a certain level of control that you want to use. Like I said earlier, when we're selecting clips for our clients, like we're trying to choose things that will actually push their brand forward and that is like related to their product or service. So like if we're not just trying to choose clips that'll be the funniest or that will be the most like intriguing. Like we're also trying to choose clips that actually tie back to their brand and what they're trying to sell at the end of the day, right? So there's kind of an art in balancing the two of those.
Right. Yeah. And I think that, I mean, I know you would have thought about this too. There are lots of people who do this AI kind of clip sourcing. There is something about the human component, about someone sitting down and listening to the nuance of a statement that really is. I mean, I'm not sure if it will ever get to the point where that could be replicated, but there's something about that really adds to what the content can be when it's repurposed. And you need that, in my mind, it's a higher quality if you include that human component, especially if the person knows what an interesting soundbite is supposed to be like, and they're accustomed cutting these things up and making them into repurposed content. It's much, 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 much better when somebody actually puts their hand on it and chooses the content themselves.
Yeah.
And I know for you, that was a battle when you had to outsource some of that, because you felt you were the best person to choose the content.
Yeah, that's definitely a conundrum. You gotta put a lot of trust in video editors to be able to source clips, and like there's a lot of those AI platforms that are popping up right now, and I'm really excited about the future of them. When that time comes, we're going to be utilizing them internally as well, but we're still going to have a video editor that goes through and uses that AI, and then we'll select the best clips that the AI suggests. So like I think that the cool thing about the AI editing is it'll make it faster, but you're still going to need the human component. It'll just make it more efficient. So that's all I'm seeing that heading. It'll never be fully automated. Well, I say never, but you never really know. But I think in the near term, 5-10 years, that's how the process will look like. We'll use these AI tools, but then you still need a human to pass through and actually make sure, hey, this is on brand, this makes sense. Computer didn't make any mistakes.
Right. Is that something you would be interested in creating for yourself? Some software like that?
I'd rather just leave other people to create it. Honestly, there's so many talented like software developers and startup founders, and we've spoken to a lot of them. Honestly, like 10, 15 different founders who are trying to start AI clip selection platforms, and we know from talking to them that it's pretty early on in the process. So, but like I said, I think that's what they're building. What we're building is more of the service and the human component aspect. So.
Right. Okay. Great. Let me just check the comments again. So Bala did not ask the question again.
He probably fell asleep.
Yeah, maybe you could always holler at him if you wanted to. Earlier you said primary school. Why did you say primary as opposed to elementary?
Did I say that?
Yeah, you did.
Wait. I don't even remember saying that. I would call it elementary school, middle school, high school, and college.
You said primary, which I found to be very amazing because that's a British thing. We say that in the Caribbean. And I know that I've never heard an American natively say primary school. They say it just the way you just listed it there.
Maybe I was just like listening to you, and then I was picking up on your vernacular. I don't know.
I don't know.
That happens.
It works. Okay. I have a big question. Do you believe in short attention spans?
Honestly, no. Like, so everyone is talking about this trend. Our attention spans are getting shorter. And the humans today are not that different from humans 10,000 years ago as far as like our biological wiring. What I will say is our habits, our day-to-day habits can change. So I think that there are a lot of people out there who love consuming what I would call slow content, which is like podcasts, movies, things that you actually have to sit down and really pay attention to in order to get gratification out of. And then there are definitely people who just go on TikTok and scroll, and that works for them. There's also the majority of us consume both, long form content and short form content. We consume movies, and we consume TikTok as well, and Instagram, things of that nature. We consume podcasts and we consume podcast clips. I think we all want options. At the end of the day, like I said, with the way we learn things, you need to hear something multiple times in order for it to actually stick and for it to actually resonate with you. So that's where the power of having both long form content and short form content come together is really important. But also, I think there are times when the cool thing about, like, if you were to watch this compared to one of our clips that we generate from it, is like, I think you'll actually get to know us a little bit better and get a better vibe for us, get to trust us better, understand actually how we think about problems too, like how we think through these questions. So I think that most people are in a middle ground. They like short content. They also like long form content. It's really fun to sit down and watch a full length movie. It's great. It's not going, I don't think it's just all going towards short form at all. I don't believe that theory.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's been overplayed now. It's, people make a choice to be interested and to pay attention to what they find to be compelling and interesting. And if the content is interesting, compelling, then people will put more time into it. Now, granted that it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because before Vine existed, there was no platform like that where it was 7 seconds long. So we got something that we never asked for, and as a result, it produced 7 seconds, and then that was killed off, and then TikTok came with 15 seconds, and then it was an experiment, and they realized that it was producing something, and so all of a sudden, everybody has short attention spans, and I don't know, well, I think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, actually.
But if this is any indicator of anything, TikTok now allows you to post up to 10-minute long videos.
Yep.
So they went from a minimum of, I guess it started out with 60 and then went to 3 minutes, and I think to 10 minutes. Yes. And Instagram went from increase from 60 seconds recently as well. So I think these platforms are realizing that, like, I think they were able to capture a lot of users by constraining the length of these videos, because it forces creators to like really pack a punch and make engaging short form content. But if TikTok is releasing up to, allowing creators to do up to 10-minute long videos, I think, like I said, I think that's an indicator of something.
Yeah. I mean, up till 2020, LinkedIn was only allowing up to 10 minutes. So it's like, YouTube wants to be TikTok, and TikTok wants to be YouTube, and Instagram wants to be TikTok, and TikTok wants to be YouTube, and it's,
yeah, that's true.
Nothing is anything anymore. But I will say that long form content, undisputed, is YouTube, and that we can depend on, or as of now, that we can depend on, and so on. I'm talking about YouTube. I have a question from Mitch. The question from Mitch is, YouTube videos are currently the closest thing we have to timeless content. So there's IG, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, blogs, etc. All seem to vanish into the ether after a bit of time. I wonder why YouTube videos stick around much more than other types of content. From Mitch Kubik, your business partner.
Yeah, that's That's a really good question. I think part of it comes down to culture around these platforms. And what's interesting about YouTube is it's like, would you think of YouTube as a social media platform yourself?
Yeah, I would. I mean, it wasn't always like that, but they've integrated tools to make it more so now, especially live videos as well.
That's true. And obviously you're in the space, so I think you would characterize it that. But I think there are a lot of people who would characterize YouTube as something different, as maybe not as a social media platform, more as just kind of like it's YouTube. It's somewhere where I go and I watch my favorite YouTubers, right? And like
True.
it's just kind of a different, it's kind of a just different platform. The culture around it, versus a platform like TikTok, for instance, as well as also just the way that the YouTube algorithm works. When you start watching someone's YouTube videos, maybe one they posted last week, YouTube's also going to suggest videos that they posted 3 months ago, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years
Yeah,
ago, and
yeah.
drum those up. So, yeah, I mean, you also see like a lot of, so like with TikTok, a lot of it's based around trends, in music, and it is really catchy for some time. But then at a certain point, you're like, I am so tired of hearing this. Like that, this trend is over. There's a lot of wave riding on a platform like that. I think you can create timeless content on TikTok, but then you should probably post it to YouTube because it might last longer there. We'll see how that statement stands true in a few years, but I don't exactly know how to answer that question. I think it, yeah.
Go ahead. I was just going to say we repurpose this clip and see what happens in a few years.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I was just gonna say, I think it comes down to culture, like I said, like LinkedIn too. A lot of people don't even think of LinkedIn as a social media platform, except you and I have built businesses off of LinkedIn and connected with a ton of people.
yeah.
So YouTube is just different. It's really cool. They've paid out billions. They pay out billions every year to their creators to create the best content. I think the number is like 15 billion. About 55% of their ad revenue goes directly to creators, which is
Yeah,
amazing. Their monetization model there is makes creators want to keep creating content and literally build careers out of it. It's so cool. It's awesome.
yeah. It's unmatched. It's true.
Yeah.
All right, so let's bring this section in for a landing. I did not realize we had been talking for this long. Usually by now we'd have gone through the second section already, but the conversation was flowing, so I did not check the time.
We're good.
Let's bring let's go into the other section of the show, which I like to call agree, disagree. This is where I make some statements, and you can decide if you agree or disagree with them. And yeah, let's run that right now. Agree, disagree with Grant. How do you pronounce your last name? Taleck?
Taleck. Yeah.
Taleck, with Grant Taleck.
We can all agree on that.
Agree, disagree with Grant Taleck. And so these are general statements that I'm going to make, and it's not a representation of whether I disagree or agree with it. These are things that some of them pertain specifically to you. I wish I had included a golf this one, but it is not in there.
Can I explain myself, or can I only say agree, disagree?
You can explain yourself.
Okay. Okay.
All right. So agree, disagree. This is one I ask everyone. Passion before skill.
I'd agree with that. I think the passion is what creates the skill. And I'll bring it back to disc golf. Like about a year and 2 months ago, I was like, hey, I'm going to start practicing disc golf and get better. I was not good. I didn't have many skills, but I was like, hey, I want to get a lot better. Signed up for some tournaments. I started going to the field every day and throwing and like honing in my skills because I had a passion for it. But honestly, the only reason I had a passion for it was because I showed up every day to the field, and just seeing me progress over time, it was fun. That's what created the passion. So I agree. Passion before skill.
I just, when you said skills, I just imagine Napoleon Dynamite. That's what popped into my head. But yeah. People usually choose, it's like a 50-50 split on this. So yeah, I could agree with that. Agree, disagree. Content made specifically for a particular platform is always better than repurposing.
I would tend to agree with this. Repurposing, I think, can do better than almost like 80, do just as good as maybe 80 or 90% of content out there. But if you have something fully tailored to the platform, and maybe it has like, maybe it speaks specifically to the culture of the platform, that's awesome. But the thing is, with your repurposing, you can do that too. So you just kind of have to be good with it. Got to be smart with it.
All right. Agree, disagree. I think you touched on this already earlier in our conversation. Most businesses only need 1 or 2 social media platforms to grow their business.
I would agree with that. To grow your business, you probably only need one. We really focused on LinkedIn to grow Authentic, our agency. But I'll be honest, we're a little bit afraid that if LinkedIn washed up overnight, then where would our business go and where would our relationships go with it? So I think it's really important to diversify onto at least 2 platforms, and then also always be on the lookout for new platforms that are coming up, and trying to grow on those as well with all the skills you built from creating on those previous platforms. So yeah, you only need 1 or 2, but focus on those first. And then once you have those built out and going, you can start experimenting with others.
Did you ever try Clubhouse out? Or that was another thing?
Yeah, but I was more of a fan of Twitter Spaces when they
Right.
launched that product, because I had like a following on Twitter, and Clubhouse was cool, but just very time intensive. And I wanted to put more of my time towards actually creating content that would kind of live out there rather than spending time on Clubhouse rooms. So that was just my spiel with that.
Right. And then now LinkedIn has it, and everyone has it now. Facebook
Yeah.
has it, so it's a thing. All right. Agree, disagree. The creator should not be the repurposer.
I would agree, unless you have to be. Like in the early days, it's okay. I think if you are an individual creator and you spend a lot of time on one piece of content, you should still spend time on the repurposing process too, because it can then bring back attention to that awesome piece of content you already created. But you have so much more time on your hands and get so much more efficient if you have someone that's fully focused on repurposing and someone that's fully focused on creating new content. So yeah, it's just a better way to do it.
All right, good. And then we have this one. Agree, disagree. Free examples of your service does not make a business sense.
For our business, I would agree. Now, because we already have so many examples that we've created from ourselves and from past clients, that we shouldn't have to create free examples from your content to show what we're worth. So yeah, but for like, an ice cream shop, like I want a free sample. That's going to make me want to buy more. So you just got to really think about your business. There's no blanket answer, but I think for most marketing services and stuff like that, if you have work that you can showcase in video content and examples and some testimonials, then you shouldn't have to give free examples.
Yeah, I think a service is the nature of a service is that after you've done it, it's done. Right? That's the nature of a service. If Baskin and Robbins has a budget for samples, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's true.
And so, why? Why? I mean, if you're just starting out and you have no work to show for it, you might as well do stuff for free of charge.
Yes.
and build your portfolio. And that's the path of every person who's starting out. They have to do stuff,
That's how we started out. We started out giving free examples. It helped us land our first few clients. And then there reached a point where giving free samples to potential clients, the reason they asked for free examples is because they were kind of just tire kicking, you might say.
Yeah.
And they weren't actually interested in buying our service. It helped us get our first few clients, but then at a certain point, it was taking away from us and our resources. So we had to make a rule: no free examples. And I think it's a good rule for where we're at right now. You're so right though. When you're first getting started, you just got to create something, show it to people, But if you're getting started in video content, like I think you should create video like examples for yourself, like for your own brand, and showcase yourself, because that lasts longer, and it's something you can is really supporting your business as well. So
or at least volunteer to create for some people that you like and
Oh, that's
so,
true.
like your friends may have a business and you say, hey, I can do this for you. And you know them, you like them, they may have helped you out in the past or whatever it is, and you just do it for them, as opposed to some spontaneous person turning up on the internet.
And expect nothing in return, especially if you're doing it with your friends. Just do it because you want to do it.
Do it because you want to do it. I was a wedding photographer, and I shot my very first wedding for free. I was offered money and I refused it, only because I felt like it was kind of an experiment for me as well. So those are the days.
That's awesome.
Agree, disagree? Every podcast should be a video podcast.
Probably. It's getting really okay. I'm using vague words. I gotta agree. I agree. Because it's getting really easy to do it. Like, you don't need any fancy equipment. You just need your phone or your laptop, and a simple microphone. And then from there, there's so much more you can do when it comes to repurposing. So you're going to get way more value out of it. It's just like an 80-20 thing.
Right.
So just do it. Also, when you're interviewing someone, you can see their facial cues. So if they're up on video, you can actually get better context and have more of a real conversation than just, hearing a speech bubble pop up and down. So it just makes sense. I agree.
Yeah. I'm thinking so too. I'm thinking that we would not recommend to anyone to just do an audio podcast at this time. At this time in the history of video, we would not recommend that. Not recommended. And lastly, agree, disagree. This is one that I ask everyone. On social media, you grow more from doing rather than consuming.
Yeah, agree. I think no one's perfect when it comes to this, but every time you open up a social media app, if you at least have a goal for what you're going there to do, you want to contact someone, you want to do some outreach, you want to post something, I think that's really important. You can get a lot of inspiration from consuming content, but take a screenshot of it or just for inspiration in the future. But I've learned a lot about myself by writing and creating LinkedIn posts and all types of content. So I think you do get way more out of it from creating on those platforms than just observing.
Yeah, definitely. That's so this question keeps its 100% record of agreement. There's no one who's disagreed with this yet. You could have gone rogue. It's a
layup.
It's a layup, basically. I mean, unless you have no idea what social media is about, in which case you wouldn't be on the show even. So, it's a layup. It's a nice, easy landing for the last question. And so we have come to the end of Agree, Disagree, and the end of our show. Grant, could you tell people where they can find you if they want to get in contact?
Yeah, so personally, I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter and YouTube at Grant Taleck. You'll see my name there. You can find our website at AuthentICmarketing.com. It's authentic with a C, or sorry, authentic with a Q, not a C. You'll see it right there. You're making it way easier. So just go to that website. Yeah, that's better.
Right. And this is Grant on LinkedIn.
Yeah. But actually, if you have any questions about content repurposing, like the tools we use, and we didn't really talk much about that, but you can reach out there. I'll be happy to help, offer some suggestions, and then there's a bunch of content there also too that I think that's helpful. But I'm a pretty open book when it comes to our process and helping people out. I think that so just come to me if you have questions.
Yeah, go check them out on LinkedIn, and if you want to see the conversations between Grant and Mitch, you can go check them out on YouTube as well, on Authentic on YouTube. That'll be useful as well. I know you are the script user, and so am I. I think we may have connected over that. I'm not sure.
Yep.
But thank you so much for being on the show. Are there any last things you want to share with the people before we sign off for this week?
No, I think I've said it all. Like I said, I'm here to help. So if you reach out to me, I'll be a resource. That's all I gotta say.
Great and wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody in the Useful Content community, for coming out this week to our show and for learning more about repurposing your video content. And we will see you again soon on another episode of the Useful Content Creation Show. Bye, everyone.